And then now we get to this next section. The church's express abandonment of Mormon. Oh, yeah. Now we're going to tell you, Judge, what the church didn't tell you. Can you read 144, Rebecca?
Yes, let me get here. Okay, the church's express abandonment of Mormon. That's right. In 2002, sorry, Plaintiff Intellectual Reserve filed U.S. trademark application set number blah, 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 to register Mormon for religious services, namely operating places of assembly for worship and gatherings, ministerial services, namely providing religious worship services and conducting church-sponsored programs. The examiner refused registration, finding that Mormon was generic because it would be understood as a religion or church. Office action, March 18th, 2003. Notwithstanding multiple attempts by the Plaintiff Intellectual Reserve, Inc. to overcome this, how do you say it again?
Genericness.
What is it?
Genericness.
Oh, it is just generic. I was going to put the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Genericness. There you go. Refusal. The examiner issued no fewer than 4 separate office actions refusing registration based on genericness grounds. Even though the plaintiff appealed the refusal to the board, the plaintiff failed to file its brief, resulting in dismissal of the appeal on July 23rd, 2007, and causing the USPTO to issue a formal notice of abandonment on August 22nd, 2007. So it was for those specific purposes. They were not allowed religious worship to copyright the word Mormon because they only own the Mormon copyright for, I think it's genealogy and educational purposes. They own it for a very specific niche. I did a podcast on this, but it sounds like here they were trying to trademark it for a religious worship kind of a function. And they were not allowed to do that because it was too generic.
This is very important, I think. What do you think about this, Bill?
I don't have much to say. You can just move on from here.
Okay, Rebecca.
I think that's a smoking gun. I think that's huge. They are not allowing them to trademark it for use by a church. They've allowed them to trademark it. And I have to remember it was something to do with institute and educational purposes and genealogy that they could trademark the word around that. But they're not letting them use it here as some kind of a blanket identifier. And they tried and failed several times. I think this is one of the more smoking gun paragraphs.
I think so too.
Yeah, this is an admission that the word doesn't just get a blanket trademark for everything.
Yes.
It clearly, again, the reason I'm stammering is because I'm still trying to figure out who that other entity was. This isn't that though. This is something.
Oh, you're trying to look it up.
Yeah. So I was trying to find the other one because that's the same idea. The legal system said you guys can't just use this word everywhere and say you're the only ones that own it. You trademarked it for specific instances. And Rebecca, you pointed out there's 2 instances that they did that for. You don't own the word in all the other places. It still has a right to be used by people as a general term.
Yeah, and I don't think this was the upshot of a lawsuit like your case was that you talked about, Bill. This is just the church going to the U.S. Trademark Office and applying for Mormon in this context, and the examiner saying no.
No way.
Yep.
There's not an other party in there. It's just the church and the examiner. That's how I read this.
How much weight would that be given? That another governmental entity already said, no, that's not how you can use that. That's not how you can appropriate that.
Well, because the church failed to appeal it, it becomes the law of the case. So I think that's very important, this particular paragraph.
Smoking gun.
And then it goes on with some more, and then we get to 149, Bill. Are you still looking that up, Bill? Would you like me to read this?
No, I've got it. 149. So on August 16, 2018, the church definitively declared Mormon is out. President Russell M. Nelson, then president of the church, announced that the church would no longer use Mormon as a brand identifier for the church and would limit its use moving forward to descriptive of nominative references to the Book of Mormon or the Mormon Battalion or, those kinds of things, or other proper nouns and use as an adjective.
Yes. And we all remember this very well. And the judge probably knows about it. I expect he lives in Utah since that's where he works. So I'm sure everybody who lives in Utah is paying any attention knew all about this. And if he didn't, he sure does now. So 150, around the same time, the church released a new style guide for the media to use when reporting about the church. And we all know what it said. Don't use Mormon church. That offends us. And it goes on to say what it is in detail. 153, Rebecca.
Yes. There it is. Yeah. And this is about the time when all of our friends and neighbors started turning on us when we just used Mormon in conversation. And they would literally shut down conversations and get right in your face and say, I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And the church institutionally would sort of censure newspapers or other things that use the word Mormon. They were really trying to stick to this right out of the gate. So 153, in October 2018, President Nelson spoke in a globally broadcast talk explaining the church's decision to abandon the use of Mormon, calling the definitive action a correction that was commanded by God. President Nelson explained, I swear I have this memorized. The name of the church is not negotiable. Oh my gosh. For much of the world, the Lord's church is presented disguised as the Mormon church. When we omit his name from the church, we are inadvertently removing him as the central focus of our lives. He went so far as declaring that every use of Mormon church is a major victory for Satan.
Apparently, in the talk under paragraph 154, President Nelson acknowledged that some had criticized the decision, using worldly arguments about branding in view of the digital world in which we live and with search engine optimization that helps all of us find information online. Yeah. To the critics, he explained, if this were a discussion about branding a man-made organization, those arguments might prevail. But in this crucial matter, we look to him, that's a capital H, whose church this is, and acknowledge that the Lord's ways are not and never will be man's ways. And apparently the Lord's ways are not the ways of the United States Trademark and Patent Office.
Well, do you know who those critics were? It was their freaking marketing department who, and I've had people tell me, we're just dying over this. You do not abandon a worldwide recognized and beloved brand. People try to achieve that, for decades. They abandon it. The money that it costs, we're hearing that, billion has been thrown around to change everything, like it was detailed in the last hour. And I've even heard anecdotally that marketing department is still sitting on a lot of the word Mormon, ready to roll it back out when they finally come to their senses. So these aren't critics. These are smart people who know how an organization works online. And this was a disaster. But
I think if they roll it out again, they're going to have to roll it out without a trademark.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Can you read 155, Bill?
Consistent with President Nelson's directive, the church followed through with the monumental undertaking of abandoning Mormon in all of its branding and trademark usage.
And 156, Rebecca?
I'm sorry, this part just gets me so mad. It's so ridiculous. To institutionalize the correction of removing Mormon from all of the church's branding, President Nelson assigned President M. Russell Ballard, of course, acting president of the Quorum of the 12 Apostles, to lead the effort.
Yes, it's like a trip down memory lane. All of it's so bad for the church.
So bad.
And all of it's stuff that the church should have said at the outset. It actually should not have filed this lawsuit. I've got a feeling there must have been somebody. I would hope there would be somebody pleading with President Oaks, don't do this. This is what's going to happen. And that he did it anyway. But I suspect they're all yes men, so maybe they didn't even do that much. 157, signaling the permanent nature and seriousness of the abandonment of Mormon, the effort included changing the name of the church's biggest international brands, such as the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. That's the one that's going to prove it. You don't need any more. The Mormon Tabernacle Choir and Mormon.org, which was the church's website name, or it's LDS.org, but they had a Mormon.org as well, and they changed that. Bill and Rebecca, can you alternate the next two, 158 and 159?
The church reported that over 1,000 products that had the name Mormon or LDS attached were renamed.
My gosh.
Quick, what is the choir called now?
The Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square.
Is it? Yeah, nobody knows. And this whole bowl thing that they're having, nobody knows. They keep calling it the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Just pointing out how ridiculous. Okay, 159. The church also updated 300 web-based apps and acquired 800 domain names in the United States and around the world for use of the full church name to prevent use of the word Mormon to describe the church.
I am loving each and every one of these particular paragraphs because each one is a spade full of dirt that is burying the church.
Yep.
160, Bill? Or is this me now? I guess it's me. As part of the church's abandonment of Mormon and its branding in October 2018, the church publicly announced that the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, going back more than 150 years, had abandoned the use of Mormon in its name and is today known as the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. There it is, right there.
Nobody knows. In the chat, they're all giving different names. Nobody freaking knows. Their identity is gone.
Well, if you remember TCATs, you can usually piece it together.
Exactly. Like Taco J. Colds. Yep.
And it's going to go on through all these other things, okay? We don't have the time to read them. Once again, burying the church, showing that they have absolutely abandoned. They have thrust the word Mormon, their trademark, their formerly trademarked term. They thrust it away from them with both hands.
Could John's team ask them to reveal how much money the church spent to distance themselves? I mean, I'm hearing like $1 billion. Is that relevant? This is how much we wanted to lose that name. We spent this much money. Could that be part of it?
That's the only way I can think of that it could be relevant. And it might work. I mean, it's all depends on whether it's relevance. And a judge might think, well, that is relevant. How much money did you put your money where your mouth is?
You do. How bad did you want this done? Oh, $1 billion worth. Yeah. Instead of giving to humanitarian efforts, we put it all toward completely divorcing ourselves from the word Mormon to the tune of this much money.
It wasn't cheap.
No.
163. In the frequently asked questions, the FAQ of the church, it says, why don't we call ourselves Mormons? Well, we all know why, because that's not our name. And we know what the real name of the church is. So all these ways the church has continued. And I'm continuing to scroll. 168. Can you read 168, Bill?
Yeah. Following the church's public denunciation of the term Mormon to describe the church, its members, and its goods and services, plaintiffs ceased use of the word Mormon as a trademark in 2018, have not resumed use of the word as a trademark in commerce in connection with services identified in its trademark registrations, and have no bona fide intent to resume use of the term Mormon in commerce in connection with the services identified in its asserted trademark registrations.
It's a good paragraph, huh? Okay, Rebecca, can you go to 170? By the way, once again, for anybody joining late, I have gone through this a couple of times. I've been trying to highlight the elements that will lead us through and help us understand what it is without reading all 125 pages, which, believe me, takes a lot of time. And we still got another motion to get to.
Oh my
goodness. But we're rapidly approaching the end of this. Even though we're on page 64, the last many pages are taken up with exhibits and other things. So could you read 170, Rebecca?
Yeah, 170. Indeed, given the nature of the church's express abandonment, presenting it as a mandate from God and labeling the use of Mormon as a major victory for Satan, all in quotes, the public has come to view any use of Mormon in the branding of goods or services to be a definitive signal that such goods or services are not, bolded, not provided by, affiliated with, or sponsored by the church.
And once again, it's that confusion that lies at the heart of the trademark claim.
Yep.
171, given the church's express public and definitive statements of abandonment of Mormon in its branding, the church has relinquished all trademark rights in or connected to Mormon-styled names. By its own admissions and express directives, any residual token use of Mormon by the church is purely descriptive in nature or de minimis and cannot overcome or reverse the church's explicit abandonment of the name and the public's recognition of the same. So don't be showing us any ancillary little use of Mormon over here on Jasmine's website or something like that that cannot overcome the fact that we have demonstrated that the church has thrust it away and abandoned it affirmatively. Then you get to F. Now, this is what I had mentioned before, the church's fraudulent filings at the United States Patent and Trademark Office. What? Yeah, this is where they claim that the church has been lying to the federal government yet again. It seems to be what the church does on a regular basis. It's just another Monday for the church lying to the federal government.
It is interesting, right? Like on public facing, we are done with Mormon. We're not using it. We've abandoned it. And then behind the scenes, like, let's keep maintaining that trademark and pretending like we're using it just like we used to.
Yes. Could you read 172? We're not going to read all of these, and I've already sort of synopsized it, but this will give you the flavor. Bill?
Yep, 172. Despite the church's explicit public and intentional abandonment of Mormon as a mark, including the wholesale renaming of all prior Mormon-styled branding, the church engaged in an improper and fraudulent scheme inconsistent with its actual real-world branding activities to try to maintain federal trademark registrations for its abandoned Mormon marks, presumably for the purpose of improper enforcement efforts, as is occurring in the present case.
Ba-boom. Great paragraph.
Oh, sorry. Am I up?
No, actually, I was pausing to see if either of you had any comments about it, but go ahead and read yours and then we'll.
That is a smoking gun right there too. These are so good. And I feel like what you said before might be true. Could it be that sort of gerontocracy power grab behind the scenes? You have Nelson going, we're getting rid of the word Mormon. And you have Oakes a little more cognizant going, oh my gosh, no, we've got to do something, and takes the legal avenue of trying to shore up and protect Mormon behind the scenes, while forward facing saying, yeah, Mormon, we don't want that anymore. You're right. So I think it might be one of those scenarios where Oakes knew better, but there was nothing he could do. Possibly.
I think it pained him greatly. At least I hope so.
Yeah, it did. Okay, what number am I on now? 174. Okay, here we go. 174. The church
173.
173. Okay, sorry. Oh, there it is. On information and belief, the church deliberately withheld the news of its express and intentional abandonment of Mormon as a mark from the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and submitted inconsistent and false declarations of continued trademark use to the USPTO to improperly maintain federal registration for the Mormon-styled trademarks that the church had deliberately abandoned.
Lies within lies, circles within circles. And they're going to detail and document a number of these, but we're just going to go over the filings regarding the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, because you have to periodically renew your trademarks. And the church did, and this is what it says. Bill, or is it me? Okay, 174, I think this is me. The church explicitly and publicly abandoned the use of Mormon in the name and branding of the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square in 2018. Since then, the church has exclusively marketed the choir's music and performances under the name Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square, has not used Mormon in connection with advertising or promotion of the choir. So, Bill, 175.
Yep. For example, the press releases from the church for the Tabernacle Choir's annual Christmas concerts from 2019 to 2025 exclusively refer to the choir as the Tabernacle Choir and do not use the word Mormon in any way. By the way, I just want to say, when you're a dirty dog and you try to get at people in ways that are not ethical, honest, you sort of set yourself up sometimes to stretch yourself a little too far and expose other places where you've been deceptive, dishonest, and been a dirty dog. And this is one of those. And the church needs to realize that there are paths forward where they're making a big deal out of things that they shouldn't, ends up exposing their deceptions and illegal activity. If this is this turns out to be true, and it is true to some extent, but whether it's legally true, they might want to think twice before they stretch themselves in ways that are irresponsible.
Yeah. I said on the record beforehand, I said the church should not file this lawsuit. It's the worst decision the church could make. And that's why I'm going to predict that they're going to file this lawsuit. And so this is what they're doing. They're going to give a for instance of additional deceptions the church made in its complaint in regard to this issue. By the way, for those of you out there who are members of the church, and continue to believe what the church leaders tell you about the church, I want you to understand something. The church is exactly as honest and transparent and forthcoming with the history of the church as they are with the facts in this complaint against John DeLynn. So there's a bunch of examples of all those concerts. Then Rebecca, 176.
176, 6 years after explicitly abandoning the use of Mormon in the name of the choir, on March 1st, 2024, the church, via its appointed representatives, submitted to the USPTO Trademark Office sworn declarations of continued use in connection with registration number blah, 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 and blah, 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 pertaining to the abandoned Mormon Tabernacle Choir marks. The declarations falsely stated that the marks were in current use in commerce in connection with live musical performances. Every paragraph is a smoking gun. That is incredible.
Somebody got their hands caught in the cookie jar on that one, didn't they?
That is incredible. And who would know? Your trademark office, how would you know that some prophet said, don't ever use this? And Bill, you're so exactly right. Like I said, when the church points at John DeLynn, all those other fingers are pointing back at them. And there's an awful lot of things to point about. And this is one of the bigger ones right here, because I'm assuming this is all recorded. We have case numbers right here. This is all going to be recorded.
Well, there's documents to support all of this. Yes.
Right. That's what I mean. They're going to be able to show this. Wow.
Yes. 177. Now, here's where they get a little tricksy. Okay. The church in their complaint basically tried to pull one over on the court. Many of them. This is showing this one. Okay. The declarants. Okay. Hang on a second here. I may have misstated that. Actually, I think this has to do with back at the United States trademark. So the declarants submitted with the declarations, that is to the UTSPO, an uncorroborated specimen of use purporting to be a photocopy of the program handed out at a single and special alumni Christmas concert in 2023 depicted below. So in 2024, when the church goes and it renews its trademark in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, it not only falsely claims that the church is continuing to use Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which is like, a requirement to renew your trademark, right? But it also submitted this specimen of use, because you have to show that it's being used when you renew it. So they came up with this. The November 30th, 2023 live Christmas concert. At the bottom, you see it says Mormon Tabernacle Choir. And that old copyrighted image, performed by members of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir Alumni Association. See that at the bottom? Okay, so that's what they used to get their trademark renewed in 2024 in the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. Then it says, Bill, can you read 178?
On information and belief, the submitted program specimen was either not actually used for the concert or at best constitutes a token de minimis use that was done for the sole purpose of creating the sham appearance of use to fraudulently maintain the Mormon Tabernacle Choir trademark registrations for enforcement purposes and does not constitute bona fide trademark use of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir marks.
So they're saying that either this is a sham or it's a one-off that is de minimis and doesn't have anything to do with the fact that everything they've shown, which is that the name was changed to remove Mormon from it. Can you read 179, Rebecca?
Yes, and I have to say, think about how many people send us things. Had this been in circulation, we all would have received this, because it would have been something that we would have brought up on podcasts and things. Look, they're using the word Mormon. So I guarantee this never saw the light of day in regular circulation, because this would have raised alarm bells for people. They would have taken note by 2023 with the use of the word Mormon. That is so sneaky. I am overwhelmed by this.
Well, it's also not the Mormon Tabernacle Choir.
Yeah.
It's the group of people who once sang for.
Right. It doesn't matter. To use the word Mormon on something officially put out to from the church would have raised alarm. People would have sent it to us, as they do.
You're probably
okay.
Right.
179. Here we go. On information and belief, the declarants also submitted specimens that were altered to misrepresent the nature of the church's continued use of Mormon Tabernacle Choir. For example, as shown below, the declarant submitted a specimen showing a product page from the Deseret Book website selling a 2005 CD from the choir called Love is Spoken Here, found at the URL Deseret Book. A comparison of the 2024 specimen submitted to the USPTO, which is up at the top, versus the same URL product page from the same album as it existed on the Deseret website today, down on the bottom, shows an alteration in the name of the choir in the 2024 UPSTO specimen versus the rebranded name of the choir adopted several years earlier and actually from the website. This is downright completely deceitful. It's not an accident. It's not a mistake. This is on purpose.
So basically in 2005, back when the Mormon Tabernacle Choir was the Mormon Tabernacle Choir,
I'm stunned.
They took a copy of a CD that they had at the time, which said Mormon Tabernacle Choir on it, right? And of course, they went ahead and they submitted it as a specimen in 2024, by the way, to the USPTO as evidence that they continue to use Mormon Tabernacle Choir as the name of their choir. The problem, of course, is that the 2024 specimen submitted to USPTO was a replica, was it of the 2005, was it? Yeah, the 2005 CD. That's why it called it the Mormon Tabernacle Choir right there. But actually, the product page for Love is Spoken Here from this year says the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square. Now, I'm looking over here on the right. You see, they've just reproduced the same image for the cover, which still has Mormon Tabernacle Choir in the upper left-hand corner between the two. You can see that that's the same in the same picture. Everything is the same about it, except for over here on the right, where it's listed at Deseret Book as the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, which was what the church submitted to the USPTO, versus what it actually looks like, the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square in 2026.
So did they have to actually upload it to Deseret Book so that they could share that URL or take the picture?
I don't know.
I mean,
it could be a screen grab.
It could be, but I mean, they had to manipulate that. They had to create or use the CD.
Oh, I'm
they
sorry,
had
the
to,
church.
Yes, no, the church. That's what I'm saying. You see what
I
I
think
mean?
what the church did was they didn't have this part on the right. They just had the part on the left, and they dated it back to 2005, which
Okay.
is when it was released, right?
Okay. I just wondered if they asked Deseret Book, hey, can you just put this up on your catalog real quick? We just need to get a screenshot and then take it down.
So
Yes.
dishonest, though, is it?
It's so incredible. I thought nothing more could surprise me, but this actually shocks me.
How's it, RFM, as a lawyer who deals in the legal system, how is the judge likely to feel about the church's deceptions one after another after another?
I think that what the judge is going to do, there's two different kinds of judges in this way. Some of them will get upset about being lied to and consider it a besmirchment of the court that they represent. But once you've been doing it for a long time, there's so many lawyers that do this kind of crap, you kind of get inured to it. And you realize by the time you're done reading this, I expect that Judge Shelby has realized one thing, and that is that he cannot trust the church lawyers to tell him the truth about anything. You know, there's sometimes in court where you'll ask somebody a question and they'll say, oh, I can't remember the document, but this is what happened. Your credibility as an attorney in front of a judge is the most valuable thing an attorney has. And when you have lost it, like I think these guys have lost it from Curtin McConkie, it's gone forever. And this judge is not going to forget this. It doesn't mean you're going to lose the case, right? But it means he knows who he can trust.
I mean, isn't this kind of indefensible? How would you even defend a client who had done this? It's so obviously to deceive.
Yes. Well, we are in the weeds at this point, and sometimes the weeds are a lot of fun, and they're cool and refreshing, and you find a lot of fun stuff in the weeds. But I will just go back to something I said at the beginning of the show 6 hours ago, which is that this case rises and falls on the two main facts, which is the 20 years that the church did nothing to object to John Dehlin using Mormon stories, and the fact that since 2008, they have affirmatively disavowed the use of the word Mormon. But this is a lot of stuff that goes and shows exactly what kind of lawyers these are, and also actually what kind of lawyers John has. And I'm glad to say there's a big difference, and it's in John's favor. Okay, so here's 180. It's strange credulity. Now, there's an oft-heard phrase. Whose turn is it to read this big one, this big paragraph?
I'd love to read it.
Yeah.
It's strange credulity that the Deseret book product page for this album would have stated Mormon Tabernacle Choir in 2024 and was only changed to the Tabernacle Choir at Temple Square thereafter, given the extensive and publicized rebranding efforts that began years earlier in 2018, as explained previously. Whether the product page was revised after submitting the specimen in 24 or whether it was altered, and I will just say the font looks weird.
It does.
My hunch is it was altered solely for that. Go back up. Yeah.
You think that font looks weirder than below?
I do.
Yeah.
It's lighter.
There's a difference. Yep.
Yep. So
that's why I asked that question. If they had, manipulated in that way. Yep.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No wonder the church is cautioning its members about using AI.
Yeah.
Or Photoshop.
I don't see here. Whether the product page was revised after submitting the specimen in 24, whether it was altered for the purpose of creating the specimen, doesn't matter. Either way, the love is spoken here specimen was used to knowingly convey a misleading representation about the ongoing nature of the church's. Because he's right. Like, even if it used to say that, the church chose to use the Wayback Machine, go grab an image from an older moment, rather than the current image, which is clearly demonstrated a branding shift that's abandoned the word Mormon.
Yes.
Yeah. So knowingly convey a misleading representation about the ongoing nature of the church's trademark use relating to the choir, falsely suggesting that the continued use extends beyond the historical CD covers dating well before the church's exhaustive rebranding efforts. LDS Church, all you guys do is lie, lie, lie. And all we do on this side is keep pointing it out. It's actually quite easy to do at this point.
You were right, Rebecca. You saw that coming. Can you read this? I'm sorry. What, Rebecca?
181. I'm just shaking. I am so disappointed. I did not think the church could just disappoint me anymore, but this is so obviously they had to work at these lies. They had to create these things. Sorry. I know.
That's why they charge so much.
It's gross.
This isn't easy making lies this
It's so
this convoluted, being this sneaky.
Sorry, I'm just stunned here. Okay, 181. The declarants did not submit an example of a single CD album recorded by the choir after 2017 as a specimen of use for the March 1st, 2024 declarations to maintain registrations, numbers, this and that.
They didn't, huh?
So no product.
That might be suspicious.
Yeah.
Okay, so they don't do any CD albums after 2017. Remember, 2018 was when President Nelson said no more Mormon. 182, Bill?
The church did not inform the USPTO at the time of submitting its declarations for registrations numbers, the two things it's got to mark for, that the church publicly and permanently abandoned the Mormon Tabernacle Choir marks in 2018, thus intentionally misleading the Trademark Office examiner to believe that the Mormon Tabernacle Choir marks were in continuous and current use through 2024. You guys got caught. He caught you. It's not going to be good.
No, because one of the things they're asking for in the complaint is for the judge to discontinue these trademarks on the basis that they were obtained fraudulently.
Yeah, we're all going to win at the end of this one, I think. So,
yeah. Sweet. Radio Free Mormon, up your wazoo. 183, on information and belief, the false declarations and misleading specimens filed on March 1st, 2024, were submitted with full knowledge of the church's abandonment of Mormon Tabernacle Choir and full knowledge that any remaining use thereof, including the specimen use, was at best a token, de minimis use, that was done for the purpose of creating the sham appearance of using Mormon Tabernacle Choir in order to fraudulently maintain a federal registration for an abandoned mark. Okay, so that's what they talk about in terms of the Mormon Tabernacle Choir. I think we understand what the church is up to. Filings regarding the Mormon Channel mark. It's a similar story there, though perhaps not as the Mormon Tabernacle Choir story has that additional element of the outright deception showing the specimen.
Yep.
That makes it a little more different and more interesting than these other examples, but these other examples are the same in that they're saying that the Mormon Church keeps going to the patent office and saying we want to renew our trademarks with Mormon in them during 2018 post period, and never telling them that the church has abandoned the word Mormon. Therefore, according to this, obtaining those and continuing and renewing those trademarks fraudulently. So they did it for the Mormon Channel. There's all that stuff for the Mormon Channel and all the dates. They did it for the Mormon Messages, that trademark. Went to the office and got it under false pretenses, according to their complaint. Book of Mormon Stories, Mark. They did the same thing.